Hello there, you're watching Nightline. I'm Anita Rube. The headlines. Cabinet decides not to sell Plus, toll rates to be reduced by 18%. And government rolling out national strategy plan to address underage marriages. Our headlining story, the government will not proceed with the sale of highway concessionaire Plus Malaysia Berhad. Prime Minister Tun Dr. Mahathir Mohamad said the decision was made at Wednesday's weekly cabinet meeting, where it was also decided that toll rates will be reduced by 18% from this year, with Plus being given a 20-year extension of the toll concession.
We have studied all the bids made by the private sector and also by Khazanah, and in the end we decided that the best way is not to sell Plus to anybody but to retain it with Khazanah and KWSP. So they will have to reduce the toll rate by 18%. But please remember that it's 18% fixed at today's rate.
He said this after launching the An-Nur Islamic Complex at the Tenaga Nasional Berhad TNB headquarters in Kuala Lumpur Thursday. The government had received 5 offers for Plus, the country's largest highway operator, managing over 1,100 kilometres of highway. Government Sovereign Wealth Fund Khazanah Nasional Berhad owns 51% of Plus through UEM Group Berhad, while the Employees Provident Fund EPF holds the remaining 49%. Meanwhile, the government's decision not to sell Plus has been called a win-win situation for toll users and the general public. Professor Ya Kim Ling, a professor of economics at Sunway University, says toll users will benefit from the 18% reduction and the EPF will eventually be able to still return dividends to the general public.
It's a win for millions of highway users since there will be an 18% reduction in toll. The downside is that the toll will be extended for another 20 years. That would mean that the valuation of the asset would likely remain the same, remain unchanged, and it's a long-term asset that is generating revenue. So, as a mature asset, it is actually beneficial to both Khazanah as well as EPF. On the other hand, both are public entities, and the EPF is in fact the dividends or profits that flow through will eventually end in the hands of the contributors, which is the general public. So even though there is an upside or downside, it still flows to the consumers. So it's not so objectionable compared to if the concession were to be sold off to the private sector and they are able to.
Speaking on another matter, Tun Dr. Mahathir said the breakfast scheme for students in national schools will continue, but only for those who are deserving. The Prime Minister said it would not be fair to provide breakfast for all students across the board.
Teruskan program yang ada sekarang yang tertumpu kepada mereka yang tidak mampu. Kita akan teruskan yang ada sekarang dan kita akan tambah mereka yang deserve to have some support.
Prior to this, the Education Ministry had announced that the first phase of the program would begin on January 20th, benefiting 37,000 students from 100 schools across the country at an estimated cost of 22 million ringgit. The program features a menu with a grab-and-go concept and comprises nutritious drinks, including milk-based drinks, and simple food such as bread, biscuits, cereal snacks, local cakes, sandwiches, fruits and boiled eggs. The government is rolling out a national strategy plan in handling the causes of child marriage. Speaking to the media after the launch, Deputy Prime Minister Datuk Seri Dr. Wan Azizah said the government had identified 6 major causes of underage marriage.
Faktor-faktor yang dikenal pasti menjadi punca utama berlakunya perkahwinan akan ditanggani dengan perubahan dasar, penambahbaikan perundangan dan pelaksanaan program dan aktiviti kesedaran secara menyeluruh dan bersepadu.
Datuk Seri Dr. Wan Azizah, who is also the Minister of Women, Family and Community Development, said the 5-year plan had 17 strategies and 58 programs to be undertaken by 61 agencies. She said a steering committee would be formed to monitor the implementation of the plan, which would be led by the ministry. It was reported a total of 968 marriages involving non-Muslim children and adults, and 147 marriages between children were registered nationwide in 2017. On the first day of the I-Tunai Rakyat initiative on Wednesday, more than 10 million ringgit was spent. Finance Minister Lim Guan Eng said all 3 service providers of the initiative, namely Boost, GrabPay and Touch and Go e-wallet, approved 320,000 out of the 380,000 applications. On concerns of the people's personal information, Lim said the government is very strict on the matter and has put the Personal Data Protection Act 2010 in place.
Yeah, I think you're worried about people mining data. Ada orang yang akan menjadi melumbung data tersebut. Jangan bimbanglah. As far as the government is concerned, we are not a commercial enterprise. We will do that. For any commercial organizations, because I think some of them may be interested in the consumption patterns and use this information. But I think this is a government. We are not running a business, so we won't allow that or any organizations to profit from that.
The Finance Minister said this at a media conference during a campaign for the initiative in Petaling Jaya, Selangor, Thursday. Lim said the government is ready to top up their allocation for the initiative if the 450 million ringgit initial funding has been used up. Under the initiative, it is expected that about 15 million Malaysians are eligible to claim 30 ringgit from the government through one of the 3 e-wallet operators beginning Wednesday until March 14th. Media Prima Berhad MPB will continue to strengthen its collaboration with the Sarawak State Government through several collaborations agreed upon previously. MPB Chairman Datuk Syed Hussein Al-Junaid said among the collaborations was the distribution of Berita Harian Education Insert BHDD.
Kolaborasi dengan Suara Sarawak. Okay, and then dia kolaborasi yang kita akan buat juga untuk ke sekolah-sekolah di mana yang di bawah NSCP yang kita buat print tu. Ada juga kolaborasi yang kita akan buat, yang kita akan edarkan didik ke sekolah-sekolah yang kita telah bincang sebelum ini, dan insyaAllah kita akan memperkemaskan lagi perbincangan kita.
He was met after meeting with Sarawak Chief Minister Datuk Patinggi Abang Johari Tun Openg at Wisma Bapa Malaysia in Kuching on Thursday. Besides this collaboration, MPB will also work with University Malaysia Sarawak, UNIMAS, on several talent scouting programs, including those in the creative field. Home Minister Tan Sri Muhyiddin Yassin said on Thursday that the report by the Royal Commission of Inquiry, RCI, on the discovery of transit camps and mass graves in Wang Kelian will be presented to the Cabinet next week. The report and recommendations were made based on findings of the 17-day inquiry involving 48 witnesses.
Wang Kelian dah selesai, laporan RCI itu telah pun siap, dah bawa pada Agong, dah serah pada kita, ya. Cuma kita nak maklum pada kabinet saja, itu saja belum putus. Next week, minggu depan. Okay. SUB dah maklum, kita akan bentang untuk minggu depan. Tapi semua laporan itu dah siap. Dan nanti kalau kabinet bersetuju, kita akan benarkan untuk dia dibaca oleh awam.
In May 2015, police discovered 139 graves and 106 bodies believed to be Rohingya, as well as 29 illegal immigrant camps deep in the jungles of Bukit Genting Perah and Bukit Wang Burma in Perlis, a few hundred meters from the Malaysia-Thai border. The RCI hearing commenced on April 17th and ended on June 18th. The RCI was conducted to examine all documents and evidence related to the transit camps and graves. Voters exercising their right in the Kimanis parliamentary by-election this Saturday are advised to go to the polls early and not wait for the last minute. Election Commission EC Chairman Dato' Azhar Azizan Harun said voters should plan ahead and go out early in the morning. In a statement Thursday, the EC chief also reminded voters to bring along their identity and voters' cards or voting information and to present them to the first voting clerk on duty at the polling stream, to facilitate verification and to ensure a smooth voting process. The checks could be made through the EC portal, call the EC hotline, or use the MySPR SEMA application. He said 29,664 voters are eligible to vote in the by-election, adding that 9 early voters had cast their vote on January 14th. Police on Thursday have begun recording statements from the Malaysian Anti-Corruption Commission MACC Chief Commissioner Latifah Koya over the release of audio recordings that alleged power abuse and criminal conspiracy implicating Datuk Seri Muhammad Najib Tun Razak and his wife Datin Seri Rosmah Mansor. 10 officers from the Bukit Aman Criminal Investigations Department's Special Investigations Division arrived at the MACC headquarters to meet Latifah. They arrived at 2:35 p.m. Following the reveal of the 9 recordings on January 8th at a media conference, Inspector General of Police Tan Sri Abdul Hamid Badur had said that several individuals, including Latifah, would be summoned over the case. Latifah had alleged at a media conference that the audio conversations pointed to, quote-unquote, serious power abuse, criminal conspiracy, obstruction of justice and compromising national security. The recordings were said to have taken place in 2016 and mentioned 19 names, including Datuk Seri Muhammad Najib and Datin Seri Rosmah. Latifah said they were made public after MACC investigations confirmed the absolute authenticity of the recordings.
Sedikit pertimbangan dan kesabaran because kita akan.
Dengkil Assemblyman Adif Shan Abdullah has been suspended from his party, Parti Pribumi Bersatu Malaysia, with immediate effect. The party's National Assistant Secretary Ahmad Rezwan Muhammad Shafi also received the same fate. The move, according to Bersatu Youth Chief Syed Saddiq Abdul Rahman, is due to the alleged attendance at a drug-fueled party on January 12th. Syed Saddiq, who is also Youth and Sports Minister, said the decision was made at a meeting of the wing's leaders. The National Youth Chief said the suspensions will remain throughout the police investigation into the incident in which the 2 were arrested last week. They were among 17 people arrested at a house party on Sunday. Police later alleged that 16 of them tested positive for illicit drugs. Adif initially denied that he had been arrested and claimed to have been home at the time, but later said he was simply at the wrong place, the wrong time. Meanwhile, Bersatu President Tan Sri Muhyiddin Yassin said the fate of the Dengkil Assemblyman will be determined by the party's Supreme Council at its meeting Friday. The meeting will be chaired by Tun Dr. Mahathir Mohamad, who is party chairman.
Kita akan bincang besok, ya, dan memang ada garis-garis panduan dari segi soal etika parti dan disiplin parti. Tapi walau apapun kita mesti berlaku adil. Kerana seseorang itu dianggap tidak bersalah sehingga sudah dijatuhkan hukuman. Tapi dari sudut imej parti, disiplin parti itu kita akan putuskan besok. Pertamanya saya menyatakan rasa puas hati bahawa
The ringgit has been gaining considerable strength against the US dollar in recent weeks due to various external factors beyond Malaysia's control. Han Tan, a market analyst at FXTM, believes the ringgit is now testing the 4 ringgit 5 cent to the dollar this week, as it was the same level it held firm back in March last year. If the ringgit manages to breach this point and go higher, then we would see a gradual gain of the ringgit over the year and could possibly see it reaching 4 ringgit to the dollar.
So the ringgit has been able to gain alongside Asian currencies against the dollar due to several factors. So for one, you have this risk-on environment. What that means is that investors are more comfortable investing in emerging markets, in Asian currencies, whereby it's deemed as riskier assets. Now, this is due to the global economic outlook that is turning slightly positive in light of that US-China trade deal. Now, on top of that, you have had commodity prices such as oil and crude palm oil that have remained relatively elevated. So that's providing some support for the ringgit as well. You also have the Chinese yuan that has strengthened. And so that is offering some cues for not just the ringgit, but Asian currencies as a whole to gain against the US dollar. So all these factors that are external, that are beyond Malaysia's control, are all lending the support for the ringgit to strengthen against the US dollar.
Welcome back. Still on Nightline. The Malaysian Media Council is finally taking shape with the appointment of a 17-member pro tem committee. Communications and Multimedia Minister Gobind Singh Dio said the committee has 2 months to address 5 issues, including the self-regulating body's final function and mandate. The minister announced the appointment of the committee members on Thursday. They represent print, electronic and online media, local and international media organizations, journalist unions, as well as representatives from non-governmental organizations. The Pro Tem Committee's advisor is Prime Minister's Media and Communications Advisor, Dato' Abdul Kadir Jassin, while its president is Malaysia Kini Chief Executive Officer Pramesh Chandra. Gobind said that the committee is tasked with finalising a draft of the Malaysia Media Council Act. The Pro Tem Committee is formed following the Cabinet's decision on December 6th, which agreed for the formation of the Media Council as a self-regulatory body to protect the interests of the media and its practitioners. The Kuala Lumpur High Court was told on Thursday that former 1MDB CEO Arul Kanda only provided 60% of the information requested by the National Audit Department, NAD, for the 1MDB audit report. Former NAD officer Saadatul Nafisah Bashir Ahmad also testified that it took a long time for the information to reach her in the 1MDB audit tampering trial. Saadatul revealed this when she was being questioned by former Prime Minister Datuk Sri Muhammad Najib Tun Razak's lawyer, Tan Sri Muhammad Shafi Abdullah. She said initially Arul Kanda had promised to provide all the information requested, but the NAD ended up waiting a month. Saadatul explained that she was facing pressure from the Public Accounts Committee, PAC, in 2016 to complete the report, but despite meeting with Arul Kanda numerous times, she did not get all the information required to finish the report. Saadatul also agreed with a question from the defence lawyer that the audit report prepared by NAD on February 2016 was not the final report and could still be amended. Datuk Sri Najib is on trial for allegedly tampering with the 1MDB audit report. The Sarawak Royal Malaysian Customs Department has seized hundreds of luxury watches worth more than 16 million ringgit in 2 separate raids in Kuching Wednesday. The 405 watches of different models and brands have an unpaid duty of over 820,000 ringgit. The raids were carried out together with the MACC at 2 shopping malls based on intelligence they had received and gathered. Authorities said the watches were believed to have been smuggled in from countries such as Hong Kong. The watches would then be transited to a domestic destination to avoid being inspected. Over in Selangor, police believe they have crippled a drug trafficking syndicate with the arrest of 5 men in 3 separate raids. Petaling Jaya District Police Chief Assistant Commissioner Muhammad Zani Cik Din said the arrests also led to the seizure of drugs of various types, such as ketamine and shabu, worth over 210,000 ringgit. Also seized were 5 cars, including 3 luxury vehicles, as well as jewellery and cash. 3 of the suspects were remanded for 7 days starting Wednesday, while 2 more were remanded for 4 days, beginning Thursday, under Section 39B of the Dangerous Drugs Act 1952. Next on Nightline, US-China sign momentous trade deal. Stay tuned. Welcome back. China and the United States have formally signed their Phase 1 economic and trade agreement in Washington, D.C. on Wednesday, with Chinese Vice Premier Liu He and U.S. President Donald Trump inking the historic papers at the White House. The 86-page text includes 9 chapters: the preface, intellectual property rights, technology transfer, food and agricultural products, financial services, exchange rate and transparency, trade expansion, bilateral assessment and dispute settlement, as well as the final terms. The signing of the agreement marks a major breakthrough after the world's 2 largest economies have spent the last 22 months embroiled in a bitter trade dispute that imposed tit-for-tat levies on each other's commodities, mechanical parts and finished goods. Trump called the signing of the Phase 1 trade agreement a momentous event in his opening remarks at the signing ceremony. Liu later read a message from Chinese President Xi Jinping, who said the Phase 1 trade deal is good for China, the United States and the whole world. In another development, Japan has confirmed the first case of infection from the new China coronavirus that has killed 1 person and prompted a travel alert from the U.S. State Department. According to the Health Ministry, a man in his 30s from Kanagawa Prefecture, next to Tokyo, tested positive for the virus. It was reported that the man had been to the Chinese city of Wuhan, where there has been an outbreak of pneumonia believed to be caused by the new coronavirus strain. In a statement, the ministry said the Japanese patient returned from Wuhan this month with a fever and was hospitalized. He was later released after the symptoms subsided.